Welcome to Iceland. My name is Valur, your friend in Reykjavik, and today we're going to go through a museum called the Whales of Iceland. So they have a 23 life-sized whales and dolphins and stuff, and we're gonna discover them one by one. And yeah, we're gonna walk through the museum. Please ask me any questions. I'll try to answer them the best I can. It will take about 45 minutes, I would guess something like that. And I hope you enjoy. So let's just head off. Let's get the focus. So we're here in the gift store. So after you finish the walk through the museum, you can check out some. Hi Shannon, hi Vicky. Some dolphins and whales, and of course puffins. What's not to love? But we'll maybe take a look at that after we have walked through the museum. So the first thing that people see here is this one over here, and of course the mighty orca, or killer whale. Hi Rachel, hi Lauren, hi Anna. So you can get an audio guide here, so it's very easy to walk through the museum. There's also an app which you can basically download right now and check what it has to offer. The price of the entry is about 2,900 Icelandic kronas for one person, but that's roughly $20, something like that. And it's just about $10 for children. Hi Anna, hi Kathy, hi Ann, hi Stephen. So it's a pretty cool entry, right? So I have a little bit of a script here that they were so generous to let me have. So I'm just gonna read it for you, and let's take it from there. So welcome to the Whales of Iceland. Here you will get to meet some of the largest, smartest, loudest and most curious creatures inhabiting the unique and mysterious place that gave birth to life on our planet over 3.5 million years ago. The ocean. The exhibition consists of life-size models of all the different cetacean species which live or have been found in the waters around Iceland. Cetaceans are a group of marine animals which include whales, dolphins and porpoises. About a quarter of the world's known cetacean species are represented here. And they have an audio guide to guide you through various sections, but I'm here to guide you today. Hi Anthony, Natalie and Pat and Anne again. So, meet and greet the dolphins. First to greet us are some of the most commonly seen and recognized cetaceans, the dolphins. Various types of dolphins are on your immediate left as you enter the exhibition. And the first thing you need to know about the cetaceans is that they are divided into two suborders: the toothed whales and the baleen whales. The most noticeable difference is what the animals have in their mouths. Teeth, in the case of the toothed whales, of course, which they use to catch and kill prey, while the baleen whales have something else entirely. Dolphins, like the vast majority of the cetacean species, belong to this group. In the second half of the exhibition, we will meet the Baleen Whales. As you look at these beautiful animals, dolphins, you should note how remarkably well they have adapted to ocean life. Cetaceans are mammals. 50 million years ago, their ancestor, a relative of the hippopotamus, walked back into the sea. Since then, cetaceans have developed their torpedo-shaped streamlined bodies, and their front limbs evolved into flippers, and the back limbs have disappeared. Detectable only by X-ray in some species. Their tails evolved into the distinctive and instantly recognizable flukes. So of course, this is probably the most recognizable. As this right here, chances are that you have seen a bottlenose dolphin before. These brilliant animals are star performers in zoos and aquariums around the world. Amongst all cetaceans, this is the most researched species due to their friendly and curious nature. Much of what we know about the cetaceans was learned from observing bottlenose dolphins in captivity and in the wild. For one, we know about the echolocation. So toothed whales use sound to explore their environment. This melon here in the head that they use for like a radar. And different species produce a variety of sounds by moving air inside their heads. The sounds are then reflected back, providing the animal with a wealth of information. Before we move on, let's give a shout out to the smallest member here in the room. That's the harbor porpoise. Though it's shown with the dolphins, it's in fact not a dolphin. The harbor porpoise is the smallest species of cetaceans found in the North Atlantic Ocean. This is very common, like in the Westman Islands to the south, and you can see them playing around. Hi Janet, playing around when we're fishing, like surrounding our fishing vessels. And these big ones also, they like to play around sometimes when we're fishing for herring or something like that, like a smaller, those big orcas, the killer whales are often seen close by. So let's check out I think this is let's check it out. Yeah, so it's change it to English. So they weigh about 7.5 to 10 tons, and the length is about 5 to 10 meters, and they reach about 50 to 100 years of age. These are very, very, very clever dolphins, and they are actually dolphins. So they've been called the wolves of the sea. There's a little bit of a video over there playing how they evolved, basically. And here we see the Belugas, of course known for the Beluga sanctuary in the Westman Islands. I'm looking forward to go for a live stream there someday for you guys. Check out the live stream and check out the little gray and little white that are in captivity in the Beluga sanctuary in the Westman Islands. Hi Amanda, hi Oren, hi Connie. So Orcas, the dramatic black and white color pattern and huge dorsal fin. Do you remember the Keiko? Keiko that was also in captivity, or was in the Westman Islands for several years before he was released. Unfortunately, he didn't have it. He didn't have the basic skills to survive, so he died soon after. Kerim, we are in the Whales of Museum. Whales of Iceland Museum in Reykjavik, sorry. Hi Gunnthora. Hi Alan. So, this apex predator is one of the most famous of all cetaceans. It's an incredibly fast and powerful swimmer. It can reach a speed up to 30 miles per hour, so about 50 kilometers. It's a ferocious hunter. Orcas are nicknamed the wolves of the sea, and they hunt in groups and are extremely methodical, with a range of different strategies. What do we find on their menu? Fish, birds, seals, sharks, and other cetacean species. They hunt anything. Even polar bears remains have been found in orca stomachs. Yet populations on different areas have quite varied diets. Some groups of killer whales, for example, eat only marine mammals, while others feed exclusively on fish. Another remarkable aspect of the orca life is their highly complex social structure. Each group or pod is matrilineal, that is led by the oldest female and consists of her descendants. So like humans, female orcas go through menopause but live on for decades longer and actively help rear the calves. The females have a much longer lifespan than the males, and the average male only lives to be around 30 years old. It has a maximum lifespan of 60, but while the oldest females can live up to more than 100 years. Orcas range throughout the world oceans. They make a very distinctive wailing sound, and each group has its own dialect, so to speak. So that's a little bit of interesting facts about orcas. I remember them fondly because they were always like chasing. I was on a small boat when I was 20, about 20 from the Westman Islands, and they were always like playing around around the ship. And you know, it's like it's 10 meters long. You know, when you walk into it, you kind of like I don't remember it being so big, but yeah, they are quite big. Let's talk a little bit about the beluga. So some say that they sound like birds singing when they're calling each other. They are sometimes called the canary of the sea. It's a narwhal, closest relative, and you should be able to spot the similarities. So they are very closely related to the narwhal over here, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Because they were quite, you know, especially for Greenlanders, the Icelanders that moved to Greenland, Eric the Red, and this is a very important reason why they stayed there for several centuries. Good point, Julie, about the menopause. I'm not sure. So let's talk about the beluga a little bit. They have a thick layer of blubber or fat, and the beluga's body is almost 50% fat. So, what I'm talking about? And they have sacrificed the dorsal fin to better retain their body heat. So they don't have a dorsal fin, so there's no fin on top of them, of the belugas. The beluga has another interesting talent. Its uniquely flexible neck lets it move its head from side to side, unlike most other cetaceans. This is a useful adaptation that allows the whale to poke its head out of small breathing holes in the ice. And you can easily see the hole on top of the beluga's head. This is the blowhole common to all cetaceans. Since they are mammals, they must breathe oxygen, just like you and me, and the blowhole is effectively a nostril. When they exhale, air along with water and vapor gets spurted into the air. And different species can be identified by the distinct pattern of their spray. Cetaceans breathe only through their blowhole and are unable to breathe through their mouths. So, the narwhal. Its spectacular single tusk has for centuries been taken as evidence for the existence of unicorns. European kings and queens paid tidy sums for what they thought was a genuine unicorn horn to crafty merchants and sailors who shamelessly sold them to the highest bidders. This was one of the most important things about what the Vikings of Greenland, Eric the Red and his kin, they were selling unicorn horns and walrus tusks, and that was one of the most important trade from Greenland for those Vikings. So many say that let's switch the. So many say Greenland was settled around 1000. Eric the Red, the biggest marketeer of all time, he basically sailed to Greenland, came back and sold it as a Greenland, a much better, beautiful country than Iceland ever was. And 14 ships full of Icelandic people traveled with him to Greenland, and they settled there. And of course, Greenland is an iceberg mostly. Their most important trading source was the walrus tusks, the blubber, and narwhal spears, or what you should call them. And but it's strange that they basically disappeared around the 14th century. Some people believe that because of the rise of people going to Africa, and they were harvesting ivory there from elephants and stuff, the trade of Greenland was basically wiped out. Some people believe that the Greenlanders or the Vikings were attacked by Inuits and wiped out that way. Some people believe that they didn't have anything to trade and decided to leave. But there's no written information about this exodus of the Vikings, but they basically ceased to exist in Greenland around the 14th century. Some say it was a mini ice age that started around 13th, 14th century, that it became way too cold for them to survive on the iceberg of Greenland. But it's another story. So still today, the strong yet flexible tusk is somewhat of a mystery. It grows outwards from the narwhal's mouth and into a spiral. The tusk is usually found in males, but also the occasional female. No one knows for certain what's the purpose of it serves, but it's sometimes assumed to be for fighting, but that has never been proven. Others believe that it serves a purpose for mating behavior, where it signals status like in other tusked animals, like the bigger you get. But it turns out the tusk contains 10 million nerve endings, suggesting it's a very sensitive organ. It's probably that the narwhal uses its tusk to detect sea temperature and salt levels. Oh, that leaves the question of why it's mostly missing it in females. But recent video footage has shown narwhals using their tusks to hunt fish. They tap the fish with their tusk, stunning them and making them easier to eat. And the narwhal flukes are unusually shaped. Compared to other members of their room, they appear to be backwards. This is thought to be an adaptation that enables the narwhal to move in reverse should it get its tusks stuck in ice. So yeah, I get my nose stuck in ice, I need to be able to go backwards. Interesting. Hi Joanne, hi Joan, hi Anthony. So you see the head this is like a protruded, like similar like in elephants. The narwhal was one of the possible explanations of the giant sea phenomenon written by Jules Verne in his 1870 novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Verne thought that it would be unlikely that there was such a gigantic narwhal in existence. The size of the narwhal, or unicorn of the sea, was, as found by Verne, would have been about 18.3 meters, or 60 feet. For the narwhal to have caused the phenomenon, Verne stated that its size and strength would have to increase by 5 or 10 times. Okay. In Inuit legend, the narwhal tusk was created when a woman with a harpoon rope tied around her waist was dragged into the ocean after the harpoon had struck a large narwhal. She was transformed into a narwhal, and her hair, which she was wearing in a twisted knot, became the characteristic spiral narwhal tusk. Okay, interesting. Hi Thorun. Hi Alexandra. Góðan daginn. So what do we have here? Cuvier-beaked whale. I'm not sure that this is around Iceland. I haven't heard that. What's the Icelandic word for it? Skugganefja. Shadow nose. No, that's not around Iceland. Hi Jamie, hi Anthony. I'm just gonna sit down here a little bit. I really like the, they have real life sized sperm whales and a blue whale, and it's really cool. I brought my older boy here not so long ago and he loved it. So these are beaked whales, as they're called. A family of mysterious deep sea dwellers. These are the master divers among mammals. The Cuvier's beaked whale above you, that I have above me here. Let's go, yes. Interesting fact, Julie is saying that there was a guy in London apprehended a terrorist attack using a narwhal tusk that he brought out of a fishmonger's. So he was using like a narwhal's, yeah, I recommend it. He was like using it as a sword, kind of, right? So narwhal tusks have their different usage. So before we walk into check out the sperm whale over there, let's check out the pilot whale. The long-finned pilot whale. A pod of pilot whales is so closely knit that even while sleeping, the group stays tight together, resting flipper to flipper as if they were holding hands. Unfortunately for pilot whales, this is the species that most commonly strands on land. This entire pod will sometimes follow their leader or pilot to their deaths on the beach in a mass stranding. So yeah, they're a little bit too close for comfort, I think. So, the sperm whale. So this is of course the model for the great white Moby Dick and the whale that swallowed Pinocchio, for example. You can just imagine how a sailor on a small boat would like to have this kind of animal close by, like on a small rowboat or something like that, to have that monster close to you. So it was often taken for as a sea monster, the big sperm whales, and that's also because of the teeth. This is by far the largest toothed predator on Earth. Each tooth weighs about 1 kilo or 2 pounds and can grow almost 10 inches. I think that's about 30 centimeters. When the whale was still hunted, people used to carve the massive teeth into various decorative and practical objects. There's actually a guy at the Reykjavik flea market that, he sometimes gets these sperm whale tooth, and he does all kinds of jewelry from it. Of course they are not hunted. He's just, if they get a skeleton or something like that, he uses that. So I recommend that for you if you have the opportunity. Check out the flea market and. So, sperm whales dive to great depths to hunt for their main prey, the giant squid. I would like to see that battle, like giant squid and sperm whale. Notice the long scratches along the whale's head. The squid does not go down without a fight. When spotted from afar in the ocean, you can always recognize the sperm whale by the spray from its blowhole, which slants to the left instead of spurting straight upwards. The sperm whale is also one of the loudest animals on the planet. For echolocation, it produces short clicking sounds that reach 230 decibels underwater. This is equivalent to 160 decibels in air, which is louder than a jet plane at about 140 decibels. So this sound travels huge distances and perhaps even across the ocean. So they basically scream. The female is only about 13.5 tons on average, but the male is a whopping 44 tons. The sperm whale is also the biggest of any animals at 17 pounds or 10 kilos, though human brains still have the advantage relative to body size. But it's not the brain that fills up the majestic head. Most of it is taken up by the barrel-like organ filled with a waxy oil, the spermaceti. This is like a huge melon. This was originally thought to be the whale's sperm and was quite valuable, especially in the 18th and 19th century, when it was used to light streets and manufacture candles, creams, cosmetics, and various other products. The spermaceti is what gives the sperm whale its name, but no one knows quite for sure what purpose it serves. The best theory is based on the fact that the oil remains liquid at the whale's regular body temperature, but solidifies quickly as it cools down and becomes more dense. By controlling blood flow around the oil, the whale may be able to change its density, which could help it dive and ascend with less effort. Interesting. It's also possible that this organ enables the whale to accurately control the direction of its echolocation sounds. So that's interesting. Spermaceti. But I know, the oil from... Julie is asking, Icelanders like to eat mostly what is accessible. Is whale eaten in Iceland? The answer to that, yes. It is eaten sometimes. We actually... I'm gonna change the... Yeah, so we have been hunting whales since the beginning of the 20th century. I think we started around the Second World War, but whales have been hunted around Iceland. The first written stories about that is since the 16th century. There were Norse, there were Dutch, there were French whalers all around Iceland. They were hunting here. We banned whaling here, I think it was 1919. And then we started whaling in around 1945. But we have been whaling, for centuries, but it was mostly just smaller whales. There's actually a whale here called right whale. So that was the right whale to hunt because it was pretty easy to kill when you had smaller boats, and it would float, so you could basically drag it alongside your boat. Today we hunt two types of whales. There was no whaling done last year. Probably no whaling done in 2020, remember correctly. So for 2 years there have been no hunting, but we have been studying the whales around Iceland occasionally. It's not a common dish by all means, but it's something that's it's a traditional. And occasionally fin whale. I can, if you're interested in trying out whale, there are a couple of places that I can recommend. The Sea Baron, unfortunately closed until the spring, has a really nice small minky steak that you can try out along with your lobster soup. But and then there's a place called Three French guys, which is like a classic restaurant here. And if you would like to try it out, as I said, we are. Everything is scientifically studied here. We have a quota system for all our fish stocks, so we are not trying to exterminate any fishes or whales or anything like that. It's just based on science and what we believe is reasonable. So a little rant from me about that. I can talk a little bit more about that later. Hi Peggy, hi Birgit. Hi Becky and Ashley and Janet. It's like, hi Janet, is asking what does whale taste like? It's a little bit different based on type of whale, but it's like a lean steak crossed with tuna. So, somewhere in the middle of that. So, baleen whales. So these are some of the largest animals to ever evolved here on Earth. So before we get to know them, we should take a moment to understand what is going on inside their mouths. The display case here has samples of what they have in place of teeth. A wide row of thin plates, not unlike the teeth of a comb. These are the baleen plates. They are made of keratin like our fingernails or hair, and are thought to have evolved from teeth over a long period of time. The whales feed by straining seawater through the baleen, making dinner of the massive amount of tiny sea creatures that are caught into them. So here we have the Bowhead Whale. This is one of the longest living animals on Earth. There are a few examples of recently killed bowhead whales that are found to have 19th century spearheads and harpoons still stuck in their bodies. So research suggests that these whales can live up to like 200 years. Of course, one of the longest living is the Greenland shark. It can be up to 500 years. So like they have discovered a whale from the 15th century. You should definitely try it, Joan, just once. You know, if it's as I said, I'm not a big, but it's like a steak crossed with tuna. So the bowhead whale spends its entire long lifespan in the frigid Arctic waters. Notice that they have no dorsal fin, which you will recall is an adaptation to their cold environment. It was aggressively hunted in the past, and although the species have been conserved for over a century, it still hasn't completely recovered. Indigenous people of the Arctic still kill a small number each year on the basis of subsistence hunting. Hi Marla. And yes, Becky, this is it's a fun, they have a fun little like children's area over there. So you can, let's focus here. Yeah, you can play around in that. So of course, most of the big whales around Iceland, they go and feed here in the summertime in the north, close to Iceland, like the blue whale, and then they leave for southern, more warmer climate in the winter time. So if you're going whale watching and you want to see something else except maybe the minke whale or the orca, then you go whale watching in the summertime. But you can see like dolphins and like orca and stuff like that. So do you see the blue whale over here? It is a big one. Wow, sweet. I've seen this a couple of times, and it's always like a little bit, you get a little bit uneasy when you see such a massive creature close to you. Ashley is asking, is there any lore that has to do with the whales in Iceland? Yes, for sure. Of course, people imagine sometimes the whales to be scary sea monsters. And there is one story related to the elves that talks about a redhead whale monster that was killing people. So sometimes these creatures were feared, of course. You know, can you imagine being in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean in a small rowboat and these creatures are popping up and maybe jumping close to your boat? Amanda, tell your boy that your 5-year-old that I'm shipping one whale to your location. So the blue whale. I'll maybe tell you the folklore story a little bit later on. Is that cool with you? I'll tell you about the redhead. So it's the largest animal that's ever lived. Blue whales can grow to be about 180 feet long, which is about 4 meters, and weigh up to 190 tons. Their tongue alone weighs about 3 tons, about the same as a full-grown elephant. Just the tongue. And for its first 7 months of life, it gains 220 pounds each day, almost 9 pounds per hour, like 5 kilos. No, 3 kilos per hour. Now that's growth. I think, Michelle, there's a YouTube video shows the construction and installation of these creatures. I remember at least seeing it when they opened it. What was it, 2016, something like that. So, amazingly, this biggest animal on Earth feeds on only the smallest ones. So notice the grooves on the blue whale's throat and belly. These are the ventral plates found on the so-called rorquals, a group of baleen whales which also includes humpbacks, fin whales and minke whales. The ventral plates can stretch enormously, enabling the whale to gulp up to a mouthful of 70 metric tons of seawater at a time. It then uses the tongue to push the water out again, straining it through the thin overlapping baleen plates. Thousands of small shrimp-like animals called krill are left in the blue whale's mouth and are quickly swallowed. So that's right, an animal longer than a basketball court feeds almost exclusively on an animal the size of a paperclip. The blue whale eats up to 4 tons of krill per day during the peak feeding periods of spring through autumn. They migrate south to warmer waters in the winter, and there their calves are born between November and January. About 2,000 individuals are left in the northern hemisphere and the 2,000 more in the southern hemisphere. Blue whale hunting has been banned since 1966. So one thing that's special with the baleen whales is that they have 2 blowholes. Now if we stand here, so maybe we can see it here in the center. I'm not sure if it's too bright or no, it's not very. So they have 2 blowholes, and baleen whales also differ from toothed whales in terms of the relative size of the genders. Male toothed whales are larger than the females, but in baleen whales it's just the opposite. Hi Joy, hi Khalif. So do you recognize this one? This is also one of the most noticeable in Icelandic waters. You can see it in many places. Of course, Húsavík is one of the most famous whale watching places, but you can also go whale watching here in Faxaflói, here just outside Reykjavik, and many places around Iceland. So this is the humpback whale. And this is an extremely playful and curious creature. And they are a favorite for whale watchers because they will swim up to ships to see what's going on, and they can also like be jumping close to the boats just for fun, leaping out of the water. So they have, one of the most noticeable things is that this white wing-like flippers. And the humpback belongs to a genus called Megaptera, meaning great winged whale. Great winged whale. And if we look closely, you can see they have a row of bumps on them. And the bumps are the remarkable result of evolutionary engineering, which allows the water to flow more smoothly over the flippers as the humpback swims. Windmill designers have taken note. There are now windmills with humpback-inspired blades that turn out to be more efficient than straight blades. So that's interesting. Not fiberglass, they are soft. Stephen. But maybe the inside, I'm not sure. So, if we walk towards the back of the whale, what do we see? There are these spots. And if we look underneath the tail, you see a splash of white against the black color of the humpback's body. The pattern on a humpback's flukes are unique to each individual and can be used to uniquely identify them, much like human fingerprints. So that's the fingerprints of the humpbacks over here. Interesting. It opened about 5 years ago, 2016, if I remember it correctly. So here's a play area. You can play in the skeleton of an orca. Hi dog, glad you enjoy it from Vancouver Island. Let's check out the minke whale. My favorite whale. Well, favorite for, I'm sorry for you whale lovers there. I occasionally love to have minke whale steak. I'm just being an honest Icelander. No need to say that I'm holy for that. So, let's check it out. So if you check out here, let's check out reproduction.
Minke whales can reproduce annually with an estimated gestation period of 10 months. Mating seasons vary across oceans, although in the North Atlantic, the season lasts from December to May. The calves are then born between October and March, although most calves are born in December. At birth, the calf is about 2 to 3 meters long and weighs between 150 and 300 kilograms. Most minke whales give birth to one calf each time, although occasionally they give birth to twins. The birth takes place underwater, with the head coming last, as the calf would drown otherwise. As soon as the calf is born, the mother swims underneath it and lifts it up to the surface to facilitate its first breath of air.
Did you hear that? Everything? So this is a nice interactivity, so you can visit some of the parts. So let's look at English. Well. Okay. See if this one, yep, this one works better. So let's look at the sounds.
Baleen whales have a proportionally large larynx, which can produce strong sound waves at low frequencies. There is a U-shaped fold in baleen whales' larynx. They vibrate when air is pumped between them, creating sound waves. Whales can reuse the air with the help of a so-called larynx sac. The larynx sac is connected to the larynx and fills with air after it's created vibrations on the vocal folds. The air then passes back into the lungs instead of streaming up through the blowholes, allowing the whale to reuse the air and make further sounds. The whale uses the sound. Around 230 to 360 baleen hang from the minke
I'm
whales
hoping for more
jaw.
videos.
The baleen are made of the same protein.
So this is the most fun one.
Minke whales' flukes are rather wide, or around a quarter of the length of their body. The flukes are essentially the end of a really strong ancestral tail. The tail is called the stipule and ends where the flukes start. This brilliant 28-million-year-old design saves the whale enormous amounts of energy, allowing it to swim effortlessly through the sea. Minke whales move swiftly and can move as fast as 40 kilometers per hour.
So yeah. So now we're going into the fin whale room. Maybe they chose the fin whale because we partly hunt them, maybe. So they do educational things here also. So like a group of school children, or they can come here and know more about these giants of the oceans. And the sound here is very cool. You can hear them singing. Yeah, that's probably the humpback, the clicking sounds. So that's the blue whale expanding its the humpback. Harbor porpoise. So guys, I'm going to tell you the story about the redhead, the whale. So there were a group of sailors that occasionally they would go to this island, small island off here from Faxaflói, and they would collect eggs. So they would collect eggs and stuff like that, and then they would it would take about a day to collect eggs, and then after the day they would just meet up with their collection and go back home. But one day, one of the sailors, or one of the collectors, he didn't come back. So the rest of the group, they went after them. They tried to find him, and he was just disappeared. And they tried to, they tried everything, but eventually they just went to their boat and traveled back there, back home. So a year later, a similar group came and they were collecting eggs from the same island. But then the man came again to meet them. So he had somehow survived a year's stay on the island. Of course, people were baffled by this and were asking him, "How did you survive?" And he didn't say anything about it. He just said, I'm alive. Let's go back home. And he traveled with them back to their home. And of course, it was a really extraordinary thing. Everybody was celebrating, and there was going to be a mass the next Sunday where they would be celebrating his homecoming and talk about the lessons learned about that. And on the Sunday, he was sitting there in the middle of the church, and everybody was listening to the priest. And all of a sudden, there is a woman that opens up the door of the church, and she has a newly born child in her with her, and she comes to the priest and asks him, "This child needs to be baptized." And the priest asked, "Does anybody know who's the father of this child?" And everyone is silent. Of course, suspicion is towards the man that was lost on an island for a year, but he didn't say anything. The woman asked again, "I would like this child to be christened." And the priest asks again and looks at the man that was lost, and does anybody recognize this child to be christened? And everybody was silent. So the woman turns herself to the man and says, "You will have my curse for this. You promised that you will get our child christened." And she walks outside and is never to be seen again. So the man has a red cap on his head, and all of a sudden he stands up and he starts to go berserk. And he runs out of the church. Everybody follows him, and he runs out of the church and onto a cliff and into the sea, and they can see him change into a whale. When he lands in the sea, he has a red cap on his head, and he swims away. So people are talking, of course, this was an elf woman, and she probably had saved the guy's life, and he didn't follow up with his promise to her about their children, about the child to be christened. So a couple of days pass, and eventually this red-capped whale is like capsizing boats and causing harm to fishermen. So he's obviously has like a bad curse on him. So he's killing people at sea. And there's a story about this red-headed whale called Rauðhöfði, redhead, called Redhead. So eventually he kills the sons of a priest, two sons of an old priest that knew magic. So this priest in his anger went to the fjord where he lived by, and he used his magic to basically call out the whale to the beach. And eventually they see this monstrosity, this red-capped whale moving towards the beach. And the man uses his magic to let him follow him up a river. And the whale follows him up the river. And the man uses his magic to let him follow up a waterfall and into a lake. And there the whale dies by exhaustion. And ever since we have the fjord called Hvalfjörður, or the Whale Fjord, here to the north of Reykjavik. Ever since we have a river called Hvalsá, or the Whale River. We have the waterfall called Glimur, and then we have the lake called Hvalsvatn. So the whale lake. And the waterfall is called Glimur because there was such a loud noise when the whale eventually died of exhaustion. There was a large like popping sound, like a glimmer is like a bellowing sound, glimmer. And people can visit the waterfall. It takes just about, it's a 30, maybe an hour to go up there, and you have to an hour down, maybe, if I remember correctly. And yeah, so this is the story of Rauðhöfði, like I remembered, based on memory. Sorry about that. But Rauðhöfði. So Hvalfjörður is named after this whale fjord, whale river, whale lake, and finally Glimur, the waterfall where the sound of the whale dying of exhaustion. But there are more stories about these folkloric monsters that were capsizing boats. Sometimes the whales had horse-like faces or fronts, and sometimes, yeah, so they describe the whales in all kinds of descriptions. You can imagine having this kind of a big whale, like the fin whale here, coming close to your small rowboat. It would not be a very calming sight to have like this kind of a monster close to your boat, right? Or monster. We know them, of course, now that they are pretty gentle creatures. I'm trying to focus here. So here we're talking about whaling, and they're talking about the dangers to whales today. Ship strikes, whaling, of course plastic pollution, and entanglement by nets and stuff like that are left in the sea. So yeah. Here are soft pillows over here. So yeah guys, I think this is just perfect for a short trip to Iceland today. What do you think? Hi Vicky and Thorun. Hi Thorun. Nicole. Yes, this is a pretty cool museum. Actually, yeah, I forgot it's probably closed. It closes at 5 p.m. So I was there sitting alone, minding my own. And they are starting to clean up. That's a big skeleton, right? Þetta hrefna, the minke whale that I was talking about earlier. It's about 9 meters. And there is a quota on them, of course, about 213 animals, if I remember it correctly. 213, but as I said, there haven't been any fishing done here for. The cafe is closed. We have extended our welcome here. They are closing here, so I'm not gonna check out the coffee house or nothing like that. But I like, you know, everything's thought up for the whales. So yeah guys, I'm just gonna turn around and tack fyrir mig. I'll see you, some of you maybe, for the grocery store walkthrough tomorrow. We're gonna walk through Bónus supermarket, check out some unique Icelandic foods and prices and stuff like that. So that's gonna be at 4:30 tomorrow. 4:30, yes. And I don't remember what's next week, but I'll see some of you tomorrow. Tack fyrir mig. Bless.